Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips podcast with your geeky host, Lindsay Wheeler, where we talk about everything from death, preparing for your future through estate planning, life, the occasional breakup, entrepreneurship, general nerdery, and of course travel, snowboard, and always wine. Thank you guys for being here. Now we're on part 4 with Molly Wilder because she has a plethora of stories.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we are still learning some more, and I'm hoping you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. How many people does it take? How many people from California does it take to change a light bulb?
Hella people.
Hella. That's what it is, yeah. How many people from NorCal does it take?
Yeah.
Hella.
What did the nurse say when she lost her pen? What? Or no, how's it go? I ruined it. What does a nurse say when she finds a thermometer in her pocket?
What?
Oh, some asshole has my pen.
Ah. That's like our joke for law school. What do you call the C student? Your Honor.
No.
So
That's a good one.
We all have industry hilarity. Yeah.
Yes.
This cat
And
is
you kind of have
biz.
to. I think that's a big piece for nursing as well. Everyone says that we have like dark sense of humors and stuff like that. And it's like we have had to cope with traumatic things that we see and what we have to deal with on a daily basis. Not everybody, does the line.
Yeah.
But so
we call it gallows humor. We do it in the law too, like dealing with, criminal stuff. You're walking at murder scenes, you're looking at horrible things, and you're just like, oh, look at the scalloping on the neck when they got hit with the knife or whatever. And you're like, oh, I can totally tell how that works. And oh, I bet they didn't cook a good casserole or something. I mean, like you have like crazy things that you just joke about flippantly because what else are you going to do? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Otherwise you'd be rocking in the corner every morning,
Yes,
like,
I would be, we have a psychiatric unit in our hospital and I would probably be a patient.
Oh yeah, I'd be in there frequent flyer.
Yes,
yeah, for sure.
Hey, it's me again. I know I had a bad day.
Yeah. Hi, it's me.
Yes.
I'm the problem. It's me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we turn to humor and we turn to each other for therapy.
Sure.
And it's hard, again, to face some of these situations that are not humorous at all and try and find that level of respect, yet try and help people see that there's a silver lining to everything type of deal. Yeah. And that piece can be really hard. And some family members are grateful for it, and some family members are like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, and it's hard to I tell people like what they're dealing with this, and I'm like, you're carrying an immense burden by being a caretaker and doing these things. And oftentimes when that person passes away, you have a sense of relief, but also comes the guilt because you feel relieved. Yeah. But that's a very natural thing to feel that. And it's like, people don't talk about that enough. Like, that person passed away and you're like, oh, thank God. Like you feel,
Yeah.
But that's a horrible thing to think about, that you're happy that this person passed away. You don't ever want to think that way, but that's a very natural thing that you've been caretaking this person.
Yeah, the amount of stress that you have before they pass and after they pass, if you don't have stuff set up. Yeah. Is huge. And so having stuff like that just makes it, again, you can just kind of focus on taking care of the patient. And
especially when you have direction and you can do those things that you want to and get that set up. Yeah. Because it's a lot of things that we don't think about. And, having somebody literally then walk you through week by week, we do a whole system of, 1 week we talk to you. 1 week we talk to a financial advisor about what that looks like. 1 week we talk to the mortuary. We get Michael on and we say, what does that actually look like? Because people don't know that. And my friend whose son passed away, I told him, I said, this is going to feel very clinical and very cold for you. They're going to be literally putting paperwork in front of you with price sheets. And it just feels
and you can't,
shitty.
Yeah. And you look at it and I know it sounds bad to compare a person to an animal, but when Loki died, my dog, when Loki died, I'm sitting there looking at this price sheet to send her to either be buried or like prepared to be buried in the yard or to be cremated. Yeah. And I'm looking at the price. And first of all, I was like, God damn, I'm in the wrong business. This lady's like making some good money. Right. But at the same time, I was like, she's worth more than that. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like you look at it and I'm just like, really? She's only worth $700 to you? That's my baby. Yeah.
And that's your dog, let alone your mother or your grandmother or your child or whatever it is. Like it's a horrible experience, and it is a business. And bless those people too. They are so compassionate and so understanding and so patient. Yeah. It's terrible. And like I've had episode where I've gone through like the price sheet of what these things cost, and that's why it's so nice to have those things in place for your loved ones, where you've already pre-purchased that. You've locked in today's prices for tomorrow, and they don't even have to look at that price sheet because you have that done for them, and they can just go, I don't know what they wanted. They got it. And they're just like, we got it. We take care of that.
I know.
Great.
I know that they get, because we've had some family members come back after patients have passed. One, to thank us for the care that they got, and two, just to kind of just check in. And we usually, again, like for example, this woman that just passed, her husband has already been back in to see us, brought us cookies, things like that. Yeah, very sweet man. And asked us how we were each doing and things like that. And he was letting us know that there was a funeral service for her that would be available, and he would let us know. But he had said, he was just like, he goes, having somebody, he goes, I just get a phone call from these people that say, you let us know when you're ready. We're ready when you are. And I think they had already cremated her. And they said, well, just keep her until you set a date.
Yep.
There's no rush.
Yeah.
And send us a list of how many people you are expecting. And, do you need us to do the flowers? Do you need us to do whatever? And again, all of those costs, which again, you're not thinking about. No one's ever thinking about, like, what do I want for my funeral, right? I
do. I want a Viking pyre on Lake Tahoe, which I'm sure the TRPA or whatever it is will not be happy with that.
Not be happy with that. We'll see what we can do. Pyramid, maybe. Yeah. You'll be one of the water babies. But yeah, he was saying that it was very nice that he just went home and all he had to do to deal with was just to grieve, and that the funeral home took care of everything after that.
Because they had already done that got it set up. Like, it's so nice.
So he was like, he goes, it gave me ample time to then focus on now the joyous part, and I wanted to let you guys know,
celebration of life,
all
and the
of
fun
the things.
things. She picked out a music list, and like whatever.
Yeah. He was like,
she wanted white roses and lilacs, or who knows.
The service would be out in Fallon, and that we were all welcome to join, and that they were going to host something in their barn afterwards. And I think he said like, bring your own drinks.
Yeah,
which we were
BYOB.
Like, we're like, well, we now know that she likes tequila, so we
pour one out for the homie.
Yeah, each one, just all the things. Everybody brings their own bottle, and we bury her with this, that sort of deal. But so it allows the family to just really focus on that grieving piece, and then having the turnaround, and they don't have to deal with anything, which is really nice.
Yeah, that is important. And Miss Mary, that's one of my default names for people, Miss Mary or Miss Sally or, Sally Smith, Miss Mary wanted that, and Miss Mary had that all set up for herself and through her estate plan, and you guys were able to enjoy that, and he was able to breathe and not have to just be like panicked and, oh my God, what does she want? And here's a price list. Hey, $14.95, you like that price? You know what I mean? Like, it's a horrible experience, and you're just like, I just lost my person. And now I'm going to be shoved at a price point, and then you're like, here's your credit card. Like, fuck, that's awful.
Well, like I had mentioned before, like, this person just dies, and I'm like, I need you now to pick this mortuary. And they're just like, what the fuck? Like, I can't even process this right now. But,
so having that set up, having that in place, and you guys just call that because they already have it in place. They're not having to have to deal with it. They're coming to get them. You know what it is. And, like, it's such a gift for your loved ones. I try to hammer this on people. It is such a gift for your loved ones that they don't have to deal with this.
Yeah. And to build on top of what that looks like for us is that, like, just because we have a patient that passes, it doesn't mean you don't have other patients to take care of. Right. So now we have to put on that face to walk into the room next door.
After Miss Mary's just passed and taken you outside.
Either way you look at it, whether or not it was a patient that coded and it was a miserable death versus somebody who just died and it was graceful and beautiful. Yeah. I now have to go in and, ask this next person what their pain level is, or tell them that I need to take their sutures out, or, something along those lines, and kind of gobble all of that up. And it puts some stress on some of us. A lot of us have become accustomed to, that's just a daily, it's just an average day at work. But, and other patients, they feed off of how we're responding to things like that. And so if we're stressed, if we know we have a million things to do, like we can't find a next of kin, his patient's crashing, the next patient is asking for certain things, like we have to, go back and forth, and it can be a lot. And so, and we're not really supposed to tell other patients that,
hey, I just had this happen.
This guy over here is dying, and we're just waiting for family members to come in. I mean, they can feel the energy in the room and things like that. And so you get some patients that don't give two shits because they're the only person on the floor. Yeah. And and then other people are like, tend to them. Like, tend to them. Yeah. Like, what I need is not critical at this point, And I'm like, well, you're in an ICU. It's probably fairly critical. Yeah. But having to juggle a lot of that is hard for the staff when we don't have a specific plan set in place that, like, we know that we're waiting for family members to get here before we withdraw any sort of care, and we're going to give them ample time. We're going to let them decide when they're ready for us. Or if the patient doesn't give you that much time because, their bodies can only hold out for so long, our priority is there. And then now I have to say, Lindsay, I can't take care of this other patient right now. My focus needs to be here. Can you please tend to that? So communication just among staff members is huge to help in these situations, to say, hey, you call coroner, I need to call donor, somebody else needs to call the mortuary, we still need to get approval from, a family member that they're okay to be cleared or something along those lines.
Do you have a secret bat line to the mortuaries?
For them, they're on speed dial for sure.
Yeah, like a special bat line that you guys call.
They're on speed dial. Yep. And it always seems so weird. And we call and I'm like, hey, it's Molly. I'm not calling to ask about the weather. It's like you're not calling them for a live patient. Yeah. You're calling them, and you do. I feel stupid saying it sometimes. I'm like, I need to report a death. Right. And they're like, obviously, this is the coroner. Yeah. And so it's always interesting because I always think of things after I say them, and I'm like,
that's like when you do the restaurant where they're like, enjoy your meal, and you're like, you too. And
yeah. Exactly.
Think about that for the next 6 months.
So they're like, and I will say that the folks that work at Washoe County, they are fabulous.
Yeah, we have a great ME department.
Yes, they joke with us when we have, the moments and things like that. I mean, it takes a special kind of person to do what they do, but they are good at responding to our cases and talking with us and getting the information that they need. But it always feels funny. I'm like, I'm calling because someone died, and they're like, obviously. Yeah. Thank you, Captain Obvious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they're like, patient's name.
Right.
And they start going down the thing, and then you're like, oh, okay, we're getting into business now. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, that whole field too. Just I need to get the MEM on because that's a whole different world of fascination that people don't understand, and the training that they have to have, and a lot of people understand that the lead coroner down there is a doctor, and they're like the highest of doctors because they have to know all of the things. Yeah, like they don't just specialize; they have to know all of it.
Yes,
when they do that, and they do the autopsy, and they're doing the forensics basically.
What normal function looks like, and now we have obviously like abnormal function. Was this the cause of death? Was it just a side note? And
they're processing bodies very uniquely in that way. Like during criminal, like we look at stuff, and I learned to read the autopsy reports, and this is why when you guys were all going through medical school, I would call you and be like, I don't understand what lividity is. Oh, that's what that means. Oh, okay, this is where the blood is, and this is how it relates to the crime scene photos, and this is how I have to advocate for my client and work that way. And so it's super interesting doing the criminal work and looking at autopsy reports and stuff. And I learned that when it says, when the stomach contents, McDonald's would be what a lot of people would be their last meal. And it would say, hamburger, lettuce, potato. And you're like, oh my God, a Big Mac and fries. Yeah. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, and that's and then you start reading the crime scene, and they're like, oh, they went to McDonald's, and they got,
it was your power of deduction.
Yeah, gang shooting or something. And I learned that's, they didn't have a nice steak dinner. They had McDonald's as your last meal. So you never know what your last meal is going to be, everyone. So keep that in mind. Wisely. Yeah. And if you're in a gang shootout, just be aware that we're all going to look at that and go, oh, sadly, McDonald's was your last meal. So,
You're like, really?
Yeah.
Could have done better.
Yeah. And it's interesting, looking at child issues, you know what I mean? And like criminal, when we're dealing with criminal stuff with children and looking at children autopsy reports, like those are awful, and the photos, and you guys who have to deal with that, I would dealt with it on a different end of like, these are just kind of meat pockets, and I'm looking at things, and I'm doing the assessment for my client and taking their side of it, if you will, or when I was working at the court. But you guys deal with the live people, like, you know what I mean? And like the people, like our friend who does peds oncology.
Yes.
Like, bless her for that, because I can't even imagine what that would be like.
And with that, I mean, it's not even just the child, but the families and having to be an advocate for more than one person.
Right.
Is insanely difficult.
I don't even know how they do that job, frankly. How do you even prepare a parent for their child being sick and passing? Like that is, because there's no real estate plan for that, really, honestly.
And ultimately, and
it's very unnatural. That is not a natural thing. You should never bury your child. Is it?
Ever.
There's not even a word for it.
We see it. And it's hard. I mean, in fact, my mom the other day had told me, like, you're still a kid to me, despite the fact I'm almost 40.
Right.
And so, and we see that a lot too, where it's like these patients are dying in their 40s and their 50s, most often from poor choices,
right.
And things like that. But it's their mother that has to make the decision. And it is like, again, you kind of compare someone where their mother is in their 60s or 70s, their child is in their 40s or 50s, versus what our friend does, where these kids haven't even had a chance at life. And they're, 5 years old, 10 years old, and you have brutal. A mother who may have other small children in the home that has to make decisions and things like that. The hard part is that I don't ever want to discredit that this is still a mother making a decision on her child.
But you feel like they've lived a longer life.
They've lived a longer life, and they've coherently made choices
that have brought them to where they are,
resulted in some poor health, and that's a tough one. For example, we have a gentleman who has a lot of different things going on, and his mother is doing everything she can to hold on to him. He's in his 40s. He has lost his brother, so she's already lost a child, and this patient has lost his son. His son committed suicide at a very early age.
Brutal.
And that led him to start drinking extensively, to the point where he now has end-stage liver failure. And
so she's lost another son, a grandson, and now her other son.
On the brink of losing this son. And her husband is ailing and has poor health as well. This poor woman works every day. She works as a clerk, just as like a checkout gal, and sets up her husband so that she can go to work for a couple hours. Then she comes to the hospital to deal with her son, who's doing better, but ultimately I think he needs to have a liver transplant. And unfortunately, I don't know if he will make it to see those ends. Yeah. And so there were moments where we were already having the conversation of comfort care,
right?
And he kind of turned for the better. But now, like, again, you fix one thing. It's like, Rob and Paul to pay Peter type of deal. Like, you fix one ailment, but is it enough to really fix these chronic issues that he needs a liver transplant? Is he even going to get it? Do they have the means to pay for that? Is there a place that insurance will be accepted?
And even then, like, a lot of people will think, well, why would that guy be deserving of it? He did it to himself. Like, it should be the people who have like a genetic disposition or something.
With that sort of deal is that he gets put on a list, but he's very low on that list. And if there is something else that pops up that takes priority, say you have like a teenager that, I don't know, gets in a car accident and has his liver impaled or something, and now is a high candidate for getting a liver transplant. This guy just
is merit-based a little bit.
Just gets kind of bumped back down to the bottom, and ultimately, I hate to say it, but he probably won't make it to see that because it just is the way that the system works. And I hate to say that there's not a whole lot that we can do to fix that. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. And so
make good choices, people.
Exactly. I mean, and do things in moderation and take control of your health and be accountable for your health. It's like, again, we see patients who smoked for 60 years and 2 packs a day every day for 60 years, and they don't get lung cancer. And then you have someone who's never smoked a day in their life that gets lung cancer, and they're like, why me? And there's really no rhyme or reason. And so, or the other way around, these people that have smoked for 60 years, 2 packs a day every year, are baffled that they have lung cancer. Right. And I'm like,
you're all, hello.
Let me draw you a picture. Like, I was just like, we've given you ample amount of information to tell you that these things are bad for you, yet you still do them, and then you're just like, it's like, I'm the asshole because I'm now telling you that you have lung cancer.
Because you're Captain Obvious.
And so, yes, exactly.
Why am I the asshole?
Yeah,
well, here we are.
And it does. It's like, or people will be like, oh, well, he quit smoking. And I'm like, when? And they're like, last week. I'm like, that's not, he's still a fairly active smoker.
What is it in the, what's the stupid movie? Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, it was in Pirates of the Caribbean where he's just like, one good act does not absolve you of a life of wickedness.
Yes,
you're like,
yeah. And I mean,
you can't be a shitbag your whole life and then think, everything's going to be great for yourself. You kind of have to live a non-shitbag life, everyone. Yes. You know what I mean? Just be good people. It's really not that hard. Just don't be a shitbag.
Get out and exercise for 30 minutes, drink some water, blows my mind.
Yeah.
But and that's the hard part, is that it's like, people who don't take control of their health are the ones that are more likely to be upset when they find out that they've got something wrong with them.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's your fault. You know, in clinic I'm working right now, and we get these patients that come in for diabetes. We throw all these meds at them. All you have to do is take them.
Right.
They don't. Their diabetes progresses. Now we have to move you from pills to insulin. We had a guy lose his marbles over that because he thought that we were mismanaging his diabetes.
And continues to eat like garbage.
I was like, did you do any of the dietary modifications we asked you? No. Did you take any of the medications that we asked you to? No. Do you exercise regularly? No. Do you drink enough water? No. Okay.
Well, here we are.
Yeah. But it's still your fault.
But it's your fault. Yeah, it's a lack of personal responsibility.
Yeah. And so, and me wanting to be me is like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Right.
And these patients are just like, fix it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
we're not to that level of technology or science yet.
Right?
I hope one day we are, but
unfortunately, in my opinion, fixing it would be to put a pillow over your face.
Right.
Like, I don't know how else to help you with that. I was like, so sign here. Like,
we can only help you so much.
Yeah, we joke around sometimes. It's probably quite morbid, but the reality of it is quite clear, is that we get these patients that come in and they're very sick based off of life choices that they've made, and then they don't want our help.
Right.
And they want to continue to live the life they want to live. Now, I'm happy to allow you to do that, but you're exhausting our resources. You're costing money, you know, as far as like, are you even going to pay your bill? Probably not. Do you even have insurance? Probably not. And so, you know, my option, there's a SpongeBob like meme. I don't know if you've seen it, and it's literally like him pointing to a coffin that just says, okay, get in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we tell you these are the things that are wrong. We give you these options as ways to fix that and rehabilitate that, and you tell us to go fuck ourselves. The coffin is the next best thing, buddy. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Right.
And so, or we, you know, the joke is like the door's right there. Yeah. So it's hard to convince patients to want to be proactive in their health. Again, society wants that instant gratification of
the Amazon
a quick
lifestyle.
fix.
It's immediately here. We're priming our lives.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, patients want, give me a pill for it. I mean, we're in the Ozempic, you know, thing that sparks a whole other conversation. If you want to do a podcast on that, I'm happy to help. But, you know, and where we are with weight and things like that, but patients just don't want to be accountable for the choices that they make. And then when shit hits the fan, it's always somebody else's fault.
Right. And I mean, I think that's kind of human nature. It's like, we don't want to take that personal responsibility, and people who do are very rare, I think, you know, because it doesn't feel comfortable to be like, oh, hey, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah.
At tea time, you know, we discussed this, you know, thanks Taylor. But, you know, it is a good example. And I like that she did that song, frankly, because it is like, hey, you might be the asshole. I'm that way. Do I ever say sorry? No. Let's have my boyfriend on next, and he'll be like, that bitch, you know. But it's like, we got to take that responsibility of like, why don't my pants fit? Oh, because I've been eating like absolute garbage for the last 6 months. Why do I don't have energy? Why do I feel like crap? Well, I'm not taking care of myself. I am an organism. I am a machine. That machine wants to be fed well. It wants to have the good gasoline. It wants to have the good lubrication. It wants to have, you know, revving and driving around quickly. You know what I mean? It needs that exercise. We are machines. And I think people in our sedentary lifestyle and our quick fixes and frankly, our decadence, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can sit here and drink wine.
I know. And I can go, you know, that what is the meme? It's like, you know, as an adult, I can eat cake for breakfast.
Yeah, with zero judgment.
The bad thing is I'm an adult and I can eat cake for breakfast because no one's overseeing me. You know, I don't have a parent being like, maybe that's not the best life choice. You know what I mean? And so like having that responsibility is difficult and it is hard. And do I want that quick fix when I'm working or whatever? Do I want that bowl of chips? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Is it bad for me? And my cholesterol's going up and the doctor's like, bitch, what are you doing? Get your shit together. You know what I mean? Like, okay, my bad.
Yeah.
You know, taking that. But a lot of people don't. And then it's somehow our medical professional's fault. And it's like, you're in the hospital because of your 30 years of bad life choices. And we've been trying to tell you for the last 30 years to get your shit together. And the fact that you're not,
I'm
coffin.
I'm happy to let people live the life they want to live. Great. Right. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. But then don't be surprised when there are consequences for your actions that have led you up to this point, and now I can't fix. This is beyond being fixed, and so
or any other doctor or anything.
And that sometimes, not even necessarily for the patient, but even for the family member, sometimes is a difficult thing for them to like take on. I had a patient probably 2 months ago or something like that, came in, had a massive heart attack. to the point where he's like, I mean, he knew he was having a heart attack. So I love that he had the wherewithal as far as, I don't know if he read it somewhere or just watched movies, knew the signs of what having a heart attack was.
And what are the signs of heart attack that everyone knows?
Chest pain, heart palpitations. It's like the crushing feeling of having an elephant sit on your chest. Sometimes you'll have like a left arm droopingness or numbness, jaw. Most often with women, it's up into like the jaw or the lower back.
Sweating, right?
Yeah, sweating.
Profusely
you feel
sweating.
Dizzy. Yeah, you lose all the color in your face, and often you're short of breath. Things like that. This gentleman was walking.
And that's like 911.
That's like
call.
Yes, and take an aspirin.
Yeah,
right. I always say that, like pop an aspirin. And so, but he was well aware that he was having a heart attack. He happened to be like walking into a Lowe's, and there was somebody there that had BLS training, and immediately was like, "These are the signs of a heart attack." Gave him an aspirin, called 911, and it was the Lowe's close to the hospital I work at, so they brought him right on over. And
thanks, Lowe's sponsor.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. I was like,
all your people should be trained.
People BLS.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so he came to me. He was a super nice guy. Understood. He's like, I've smoked my entire life. I understand that
I have
is,
a red meat diet.
He's like, I'm probably 40 pounds overweight. I have hypertension. Like, he knew that he had all of these risk factors for having a heart attack. He wasn't necessarily surprised. What was funny about it is that he had gone to cath lab, and they placed 2 stents. He had, needed to have, he had what we call atherosclerosis, where it's like plaque and stuff builds up in your arteries and blocks it, and then completely blocks it, and you have a heart attack. Yeah. And so they have to go and they put these stents, which are like these mesh, I guess, kind of like almost like hoses, and they open up the arteries, and then blood flow can get through. And so he had, I think, 4 or 5 stents placed, which is pretty significant. And it was in multiple areas in the heart. Yeah, no bypass grafting or anything like that. But went in and put these stents in, cleaned them out, and was able to get perfusion to the rest of his heart. What was cracking me up about it was not only was he able to tell me that he was a high-risk patient for getting that, wasn't surprised. He goes, I knew it was coming at some point in my life. I just didn't think it was going to happen when I went to Lowe's. But what was funny about it is that, and he knew, he's like, I know I need to stop smoking. Like, my doctors told me this multiple times over. He's like, I just saw him last week. He's like, I've actually cut it down from a pack to half a pack a day, which that's a start.
Working,
it's a start. You're acknowledging that. What cracked me up is that he called his family in to come and visit him, and they brought him Wendy's.
As I say,
they brought him like a double or whatever they have there, like a double bacon cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And I smelt it.
And you're all, ooh.
And I was like, like, I haven't eaten in 12 hours, but I was like,
Starving.
And but then I was surprised to come in and find this man who is sitting here knowing what the risk factors for having a heart attack were.
Literally in the hospital because of it.
And sitting there eating a double cheeseburger. And I was like, sir.
Pardon.
I'm like, I would say you've been through some shit and you've earned a little treat, but maybe just the milkshake. Maybe we don't have like the super extra large fries and the double bacon cheeseburger. And he was like, and then that piece was like kind of a surprise to him. He's like, oh, I shouldn't eat cheeseburgers.
Shouldn't eat like shit? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay. So then, and a lot of what nurses do is education. We can't expect everyone to know everything. And so it's our job before you leave is to talk to you about what happens if you don't get better, what you should do.
Well, to be fair, even in medical school, I think nutrition is half a day in med school, which is insane to me because how do you feel your body?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a huge piece to why we have a plethora of all these chronic conditions, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, all of the things. And there are certain foods that put you at higher risk for cancer, they say, and things like that. And people are just like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love double bacon cheeseburgers. Do I have them every day? No. Right. But there are some people that's...
My vegetarian father is crying inside, by the way. Yeah.
For some people, it's cheap. It's easy.
Sure.
Right? And that's the only means that they can go about. And then they...
And we have complaints about the American diet, and hopefully things are going to get fixed a little bit, and big pharma and big, factory farming and industry. And that's a whole other discussion, if you will. And... but I mean, and it's hard for people who are socioeconomically disenfranchised, if you will, the ability to get good quality food, if you're...
Or just good quality health care.
That too,
I mean, to get the education ahead of time to keep them from having these chronic issues that they'll eventually die from.
Until it's too late, and then they become in the hospital, and then that's all surprise, you're like, oh, and then now you're trying to do that education piece for people, and these enablers too, because that's what they've always done, and this is what daddy likes, and this is what grandpa likes, or whatever it is, and mom likes her cake or cheesecake.
Yes.
Bring her some cheesecake in the hospital.
Yeah.
And even frankly, the food in the hospitals is abhorrent to me. Like, it's like, what? I'm in a critical care setting. I am trying to heal myself, and you're giving me a greasy grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, I love that. Thank you so much. But I mean,
food.
even when I was in there, like, we had to lie on my thing that said I was vegan, I was vegetarian, I was
for them to bring you a salad,
to bring me something healthy, which was insane to me that I even had to do that. But that's welcome to America, everyone. Then that'll be a whole different soapbox of me on American food, and we can go down that wormhole, no pun intended, with our current, situation. The worm brain. But but it'll be, it is an interesting and it is a problem. And luckily, we live where we are, where we have local ranchers, we have local, things that we can get that are ethically managed and holistically managed. We can get fresh meat. We can get things that are not factory farmed. I can literally know that that's Bob the cow that we're gonna share or something like that. And we have nice agriculture here. We have farmers markets and things like that. But a majority of this country does not have that option or that luxury. And it's like, how do we solve that? Because it now puts a strain on our medical industry and our government industry and our finances with Medicaid, Medicare, our insurance companies, Big Pharma, who I'm sure loves that people are sick and ill. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say that job security is not something I think about regularly, but it is. As long as those things exist, I will always never be have a job. Yeah. As long as people are dying, I will always have a job. And again, it's a job that somebody needs to do.
For sure.
But it's not one that's easy, but it is easier when we understand what patients want when they get to that point. And
so how do you guys educate people that, like, you have somebody comes in who has eaten like that their whole life and literally they're in the hospital and they're bringing him the Wendy's, because that was his everyday meal. How do you guys even broach that subject or get somebody to change 40 years of lifestyle?
And that's a very difficult, other than me literally smacking it out of his hand and rubbing his face in it like a dog. No, I'm just kidding.
Fold up newspaper.
Yeah, right? No. We do, I love the fact that the hospitals have all of the interdisciplinary aspects of it. So, I had a nutritionist come in and talk to him about what a cardiac diet looks like and what, not that necessarily that patients are going to follow it. And that's the hard part. Again, lead the horse to water. We can only do so much. So we can give you all of the resources. We can't always expect you. And I say that a lot. I'm like, I can't control what you do outside of here.
Right.
But I can control what we do in here.
And we hope to never see you, so please make these changes.
And I do. I tend to, like I said, I'm a very blunt and in-your-face type of person. I give you both scenarios. I'm like, this is the you're going to die scenario. This is the you're going to live a super happy life and you're going to, live on this planet for another 15 years if you do this piece. Yeah. And watch, he dies from like a car wreck or something.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, we spend time or we call people if there's something that I'm not knowledgeable about. The beautiful thing is that I can pick up a phone and I can ask someone else to come and help. And so, and that goes for, when patients are dying or why, like if I can't explain something, our doctors are very good for the most part, or again, our case managers, our dietitians, we can call clergy in, we can call a whole bunch of other people in to help people understand some things. And with diet and things like that, I mean, it's just, you just pray that the person understands that this
is why you're here.
This is why you're here. Yeah. And if you don't want to come back and deal with this, then I highly suggest that you start taking control of your health.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine what other communities have to deal with. Like you're in an inner city, you're in a very congested area where those resources are not available. And what are you supposed to go do or tell them to do when they're getting their nutrition from a corner store or the liquor store? That's where they buy these things, you know what I mean? Like in some of those city situations.
The clinic,
the bodega,
the clinic that I'm working with right now for my nurse practitioner stuff, they are very highly associated with the food bank. And so when it comes to that, if we have patients that have uncontrolled diabetes, have uncontrolled hypertension, things that will eventually lead to an earlier death for them, they work with the food bank and they can strictly do nothing but produce.
Oh, cool.
So they try and stray away from things like canned goods and things that have like high preservatives. And they can go, I think it's like 2 to 3 times a week to get fresh produce. And so the food bank, obviously, which I understand is like nonprofits, all donation based and things like that. And so, support your local food bank. Yeah. But they work with these patients. And so we give them paperwork that specifies that they meet the needs to receive that kind of food rather than, which I hate to say, that like they take more priority for those types of food choices versus other patients depending on what their clinical needs are. So, diabetics and things like that, where we highly recommend like fresh fruits and vegetables and things, whole grain foods, things without processed meats or cheeses and things like that. We literally give them a piece of paper that they take to the food bank and they get priority for fresher stuff.
If they're not able to afford that on their own. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Do you guys provide things like, because that's a big transition for people, that they've eaten this convenience, if you will, or this easy lifestyle, or just what they're used to, and making that shift is very difficult. Maybe they don't know how to cook that way. Maybe they don't know like the taste of it because they're not used to it. How do you guys transition that?
Even just going on like a cultural thing. So on average, Hispanic people are more predisposed to things like diabetes and hypertension, right? So trying to tell someone of Hispanic culture that they can't eat what their culture has set for them, tortillas made with lard, refried beans, things like that. There are vegetables in their culture, but salads, not a typical Hispanic food. Right. And so trying to tell them that they need to switch to that is kind of difficult because they're like, what do you mean I can't eat tortillas? Like that's like a main staple. That's like telling an Asian person they can't have rice, right? Like
it's a staple of their culture, their heritage, like, and their meals.
And a lot of times they're like, give me something else. Right. So they're more likely to take the medication because they don't want to make they don't want to modify their dietary, habits in any way, shape, or form. So they're like, no, we'll take the pill if you say that will help because this is what I eat. Right. And so it's difficult. We provide them with menus and things like that and recipes that are quick and easy that still incorporate some of the cultural foods that they eat and hope that they would take, instead of doing a burrito, they would just take those toppings and put it on a bed of lettuce type of thing. So, and I've had some ladies say like, it's actually better than we expected it to be, that they'll report back and say that's good. And other times people are like, yeah, no, it's not happening. Go fish. Like I can't. Yeah. So we just got to kind of take it with a grain of salt.
It's difficult. I think our society itself is not, even our school systems, like the food we feed the children, then that get them used to that, you know what I mean? And then the parents, and then having to get that ingrained in our society is difficult. And the accessibility as well is also difficult. And like you said, culturally, like these are foods that are, predisposition for certain cultures and ethnicities that they really enjoy. They're not healthy, you know, and maybe just be easy to come to, easy to eat, and it's difficult.
Yeah, and then you get down to, like, if you have patients that are kind of gearing towards life, end of life type of things, I'm all about just getting food in them. Right. So I'm like, give them whatever they want to eat.
What makes them happy.
Is it something that's probably not super great for them? Is it really gonna, is that the bigger picture of why this patient is here? Probably not.
But I feel like that, for me, in my opinion, like that's more palliative care of like what's going to make them comfortable, what's going to make them happy. I'm not going to have them eat like some crazy restrictive diet when it's not going to matter anyways. And give them the cake, give them the Wendy's, give them the In-N-Out, give them the whatever you want. You know what I mean?
And you hit that cultural piece where they're like, they want specific things and it's not even anywhere close on our menu. And so if it means that patient will eat, we'll talk with families to say, if you have the time and means to do so, please bring them food. Right. Because they need to eat. Yeah. So,
it's a balancing act, I think, sometimes where it's like, how beneficial is this going to be, or how happy are they going to be? Like, what do you want to do, Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, do they have wounds? Do they need the protein? I'm like, give them whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like my guy that wanted the beer, give him whatever he wants. Yeah. I'm like, I'm happy to accommodate for certain things. But I mean, like I said, the guy that was eating the way, totally. But like I walked in and I smelt it and I was just like, dude.
Yeah.
And he literally like had it in his mouth. And he's like, what? Like half of it coming out, scooping up his fries and ketchup. And I'm like, that you shouldn't really be eating that stuff. And
that's why you're in here.
Yeah. And I was like, if my physician came in, he'd have my ass for like, you're letting this guy eat this? I'm like, well, his family brought it in. He ate it before I realized he was eating it. Right. But I was just like, come on, man. You're making me look bad.
Right, yeah. You're making my job really hard right now.
I was like, I want to be a dick to you, but he's a nice guy, stuff like that. So I'm just like, hey. again, I'm like, here's a list of foods that you should be eating. I can't control what you do. You're already starting to make some changes with how much you're smoking, things like that, but it's still going to put you at high risk if you don't change your diet.
Yeah.
So again, I'm like, you choose how you want to die.
Do you feel like in your industry that like a majority of our ailments are because of diet?
I would say a good chunk of it, at least 50%. I mean, diabetes is huge and on the rise, unfortunately. And we're starting to see type 2 diabetes in a much younger age. Right? So type 2 diabetes is when your body just can't, you just have, most often due to poor diet, you're just not producing enough insulin to maintain the blood glucose in
totally
your
different
system.
type 1.
Yes, type 1, you are born without the ability to either create insulin at all.
Usually happens when you're like 3 or 4, like young.
Yes, like you start to see that pretty quick. And so, but we're starting to see type 2 diabetes in our preteens.
Whoa.
Where kids are overweight substantially, living a sedentary life, things like that. So we're starting to see that shift. Yes, yeah. They're not going outside like I don't know what they're teaching in PE these days, or how their kids are
they even have PE anymore. Yeah.
But diet is huge, and between diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, cancer, thyroid issues, menopause for women, just a lot of different things are affected by what you eat. Like it's hard though, because it's like food tastes so good, right?
Right.
And I don't want to dissuade anyone from enjoying if they're a foodie or something along those lines, but obviously moderation is the big piece here, and then just education about what it looks like when you overindulge and things like that. I mean, a lot of people don't think about alcohol having extra calories.
Right.
Coffee, Starbucks is, their stocks are going up as diabetes goes up, all of the things. And so there's a lot of hidden calories and things that people don't really ever think about. Those energy drinks and shit, like that's so bad for you. Don't drink energy drinks. It's like the people who do like the Red Bull and vodka. I was like, do you just want your heart to explode?
Yeah, you got upper and a downer, what's happening?
Yeah.
And
Yes, I was like, your hangovers are terrible, but have we done it? Yes.
Oh, that's my phone. I'm like, what's that?
But anyway, diet is a huge piece, and I think that it's, again, a lot of education and starting our kids out earlier and doing a balance of sometimes we're going to have, I don't even want to say cheat days. Some days it's okay to have pizza. Some days it's okay to have a hamburger. But exercise is a big piece. Water intake, the number of people who don't drink water. They're like, well, I'm drinking wine. It has water in it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But you need to have some water. And how good that is for your kidneys and everything. And then sleep. Is another big
the sleep
piece.
Hygiene is a big one,
it's another big piece. They say, as far as nursing is concerned, or people who do nighttime shift work are more likely to have things like hypertension, diabetes, obesity, mental health related issues, things like that. So it's not great. So get your sleep.
So how do you do that? So we work in a community that's shift workers because of our hospitality here. And so how do you, encourage people to get that sleep hygiene? Because that's a huge one. Like I struggle with it. Like they used to think I was narcoleptic because I just oversleep. Like I can do 12 hours a day. I am happy camper. I need a good 9 hours. Like I love my sleep. But I'm constantly tired. And they're just like, what is wrong with you? But, and then I have other friends who like my boyfriend who's insomniac. Like he is lucky to get 4 or 5 hours, and it's
he's functional.
Functional-ish. My other really good friend, same thing. She was exhausted. She crashed her car because she, just is insomniac and can't sleep. Yeah. And I have a lot of friends who are like that. So what do we, for you as a professional, like what do we encourage for people to get that sleep hygiene? Because I don't think people understand how important that is. We live in a 24-hour world now. We're online. We have electricity. We have all those things, circadian rhythms. Like what do you suggest for people on that?
Straying away from anything with a blue light is huge, right? They say no cell phone use, and I'm guilty of it. I have a Kindle. Yeah. So I'm reading, which is, good for kind of shifting your brain away from all of the anxieties and things that you have in your personal life to kind of put you in a different mindset. But I'm reading it on a Kindle. So the blue light's not great for that piece. But they say like no TV, no cell phones, no anything with a blue light. like within an hour before you actually like lay down to sleep. They say things like meditation. I'm not big on meditation, but I know that it works for some people. Doing deep breathing exercises, yoga, stretching, that sort of thing. Having some sort of routine, whether it's doing skincare, brushing your teeth, all of those things, and sticking to it. Trying to go to sleep at the same time, whether it's like if you do work night shift or whatever, but the same time every day, and trying to
get
wake
up at 6 a.m., you make sure you go to bed at 7
every day, that sort of thing, making adjustments and whatnot. Ensuring, they say like 6 to 8 hours is the average that a person should have in order to maintain like basically the highest amount of brain function throughout the day with sleep. If you have wounds, if you're ill in any way, shape, or form, 6 to 8 hours is crucial. In the hospital, I love it. People are like, I couldn't sleep, and they're all upset. And I'm like, it's a fucking hospital.
Right.
Like,
of course you
things
can't
are
sleep
making things are making noise. You've got people checking on you. You mentioned earlier people coming to do your blood work. We call them the vampires. They come at like 4 in the morning. You know, nobody wants to get fucking woken up at 4 in the morning,
especially when getting poked. And
then you're like awake, you know. And so it's just like, and then we come on at 6:30, and then we're waking you up coming in. And I have a thing where I'm like, if the person's sleeping, let them sleep. I'll assess them when they're awake. If they're sleeping and their vitals are fine, they're fine. Don't bother them. Let them rest. And close the doors. Give like nice quiet rooms. I have a friend who she has to sleep with the TV on.
Sorry.
When we travel together, I want to wring her neck sometimes because I don't. I need my room quiet and dark and free of any sort of stimulation. And it's just, it blows my mind sometimes that people sleep differently. But another piece as far as sleep is concerned is you're seeing a lot of people with sleep apnea. Right. So, and that comes to play in with weight and some other ailments and things like that. And so people aren't getting adequate sleep because they have this issue where they're not getting adequate oxygenation to their brain. And then they're waking up and they're like, why am I so lethargic? Probably because you have obstructive sleep
can't
apnea.
breathe.
So sleeping up on pillows, having extra pillows behind your back, and really keeping your airway open and things like that help. But some people need CPAPs and do sleep studies and things like that. Insomnia is hard, like you said, because we are so addicted to our devices, and it's easy for us to get lost in time. I can't tell you, I could sit and watch TikTok for hours.
Oh yeah, we doom scroll all day long.
You get pulled into this rabbit hole, and then I'm like, oh fuck, 4 hours just went by and I've done absolutely nothing. My watch is telling me, oh, you need to get your fat ass up and go for a walk. And so put the phone down, and you get your screen time, reports at the end of the week, and you're
mine
just
is awful, by the way.
Everyone's so dependent on their devices, and it's hard not to do that. But sleep plays a huge role in trying to get away from that. But
because when we sleep as a medical professional, that, like, I guess sleep is where we restore. Is that right? Is that where we heal? And that's
so your body basically goes, it shuts down. And so it focuses on metabolizing what needs to be metabolized to the vital organs. Again, like if you do a workout one day, right? And the next day you're going to be sore, getting up and stretching and things like that. And then over the course of the days, that soreness goes away because as we sleep, we metabolize all of the lactic acid and things like that in those muscles, and then you start to feel a little bit better, right? Stretching is the bigger piece to that. But yes, sleep helps restore your brain, and then they do the REM versus non-REM sleep cycles and things like that, and really what that does for you. But on average, people aren't getting enough sleep. Most of it has to do with just how busy we are and how addicted we are to our devices.
That's super interesting. So you in the hospital seeing this, you see people coming in and like still. I mean, when you come on shift or you have your peers coming in and they're on shift at like 3 a.m, and people are like on their phone in the hospital, and you're like, bro, you're sick, like go to bed. You know what I mean?
And in my opinion, I'm like, if you're well enough to be on your phone,
at 3 a.m,
you're usually not critical, that sort of thing. But at the same time, we're just so attached to all of the things, and then again, people are like, oh, I'm in the hospital, I have all these things going on outside of the hospital that I now have to try and it's like, put that away, focus on getting better, heal you, and the rest of this will get taken care of. So
frankly, myself, when I was in the hospital, I had that thing where I'm like, I wanted to see people, and so I was like, no, don't give me that medication because it makes me sleepy.
And this person's coming to see me,
and I want to see them, and I want to engage, and I want to be here, regardless of how I feel. And then we've had a friend recently who's been in the hospital, and when I saw her, she was very hesitant to have that more heavy medication that would make her sleep because she's the captain of the household, if you will.
Yes.
And so it was back to school time, and she's having to coordinate her children and making sure they're all ready and they got the school stuff, and then she's in the hospital for this. And I'm like, no. And she would tell the nurse, like, she's like, no, I don't. And she's very accommodating on top of it. So she's like, no, don't bother with that. I don't need that. And I had to finally stop her and went, being the bitch I am as well. And I'm like, no, like as a, you know, and I don't want to be rough with her, but I was like, you need to rest. You were in the hospital.
Yeah.
We can handle this. If I need to go get your kids school clothes, we're going to go down to the store and I'm going to get your kids some school clothes. Like somebody else will handle that for you. Yeah. Your job right now is to get healthy, to get well, to rest, to have that sleep. And then after me kind of like talking with her and reasoning with her, she was like, okay, I will take that medication. I am in pain. I need to sleep. And thank God she finally took that and, you know, is shifted her mindset a little bit where I'm like, you need to release that. And do you find that with your patients that they have like maybe control issues where they feel like they have to handle these things?
And we always ask, is there somebody else that can help you with that right now? Like, and again, I get you're stuck in a bed.
Right.
And especially in the ICU, you're attached to a million things. You feel like your control just goes and right out the door. And so usually there's a family member or a spouse that can typically help with those things. Other times people rely on neighbors, friends to handle stuff. Sometimes we'll get phone calls, like if it's a patient that's sedated and can't speak for themselves at the moment. We'll get family or neighbors that will call us and say, like, we're taking care of these things. We just need to know, are they doing okay? That sort of thing. But I have no problem really harping on the patient's need to rest. We get these patients that are super sick and families are like in their faces, like doing all this, and I'm like, you're just adding more stress to this person, which is going to prolong their healing, and frankly, it's driving me nuts. So I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
And is that, it's like choke, is that why hospitals have actual set visiting hours so they actually have time to rest and restore?
Yes, they've initiated that since COVID, and as we started to lift stuff outside of COVID, they did that to decrease the number of patients, like people that are coming in contact with patients. But rest is a huge piece to that, and it allows us as staff. It's exhausting, like day shift versus night shift. Day shift doesn't have to deal with meals. They don't have to deal with family members because the visitation hours where I work are from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Night shift starts at 7. So they only have to deal with family members for an hour and then they kick them out. And then they have their whole shift that they don't have to deal with extra people. Right? Day shift, you have to deal with feeding this person for 3 times a day, therapy, people calling constantly. Any sort of rehabilitation, and then all of the family members. And the thing that I struggle with the most is that, like, again, if you have a power of attorney, someone that is listed as someone that can help speak for you, that should be the only person that I need to talk to. Right? Yeah. You, as that person taking on that role of a power of attorney, should then therefore be the person that disperses that information that I've given you to those who you feel are privy to it. The hard part is that doesn't always happen, or people maybe don't know that that's their role. I will say that's one piece on a medical standpoint that drives me nuts, is that I'll talk to the person's spouse listed as their power of attorney. Then I get a phone call from a sister. Then I get a phone call from a son. Then I get a phone call from a cousin. Then I get a phone call from over here. I'm spending more time as the person, as their direct caregiver, on the phone talking to all of these people saying the same thing over and over again, that it's now taking me away from the bedside to care for this patient. Right. That is a huge piece, and I don't know if that's something that you guys discuss about what is the role of a power of attorney, other than you making these decisions, but it is helpful for them to know coming into it that it's beneficial for them to be the one person that staff talk to, and then they disperse the information. And I have no problem telling people, like, hey, you need to call their husband, because I've already spoken to him today. He's already spoken to the doctor. He can give you the information that you need. My time needs to be spent at the bedside. Right. And so I've gotten people that are cool with that, and I've had people that are like, fuck you, you're going to tell me what's going on. And I'm like, I don't, and I will hang up on people. I'd be like, again, call their spouse.
Call their actual agent. That and
it's not until you kind of, again, go from zero to bitch, where it's like, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to be doing when I'm trying to take care of your person that's actively dying and I'm trying to keep them on this planet. Right. The more that you sit here and take my time on the phone, the less time I get to help them.
And other people too that you're also taking care of. It's not like you just are one-on-one.
And that's the hard part, is that a lot of people forget that there are other patients in the hospital.
Right, there are other people in this world. Yeah.
I love the ICU because you only have 2 patients, but it is a lot of work that you do for 2 patients. And so that is a huge piece, I would say, and I'm pretty good at making that where I'm like, you are the power of attorney? And they say yes. They give me the paperwork. Okay, great. And I said, so you are the only person I'm going to be giving information to. If there's anyone else, I will give you one other person that you will allow me to give information to. If they call, I'm just going to tell them to call you.
Yeah.
And so communication, having that conversation at the bedside is very important, but it does take a lot of time when you have to explain things to multiple people. And we get a lot of people that are like, oh, hang on, let me call my daughter and put her on speakerphone so that she knows what's going on. And I'm like, okay, again, power of attorney is present at the bedside. Great. Right. So I know that I'm not breaking any HIPAA violations or anything like that. And ultimately, like, maybe she needs guidance from her daughter to make the right decisions for certain things. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, if they're there at the bedside and they're like, I'm going to go tag out, and then this next person's going to come in and you're going to tell them exactly what you just told me. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, in my brain, I'm saying that, but I'm like, okay, I don't have time for this.
Right.
And
because you guys are stretched thin as it is.
It is. And it's exhausting. And some patients or some family members will ask certain questions or not have the same like health literacy as the power of attorney about what's going on with the patient. And now I'm having to explain even sometimes the simplest of conditions that have nothing to do with why this patient is here to somebody who really doesn't need to know.
Right, and educating them at that point.
And so I'm like, I'm happy to help, but this is time consuming and it is extremely exhausting. So making sure that the power of attorneys understand that they need to be the one spokesperson for especially if they have huge families. I will say, again, culturally, Hispanic families, Asian families have 1 million people involved in this person's care, and they all want to be there, which is great. I'm happy to have family members there, but that doesn't mean that I need to say all of the things to each and every single one of these people, because that's not my job. My job is to take care of the patient. And so it becomes difficult to try and explain that without being a bitch of the, like, you need to talk to this person. You guys need to have a family meeting so that everybody understands what's going on. So as they come in here, I'm not having to explain what all of these numbers mean every time I come in here. Right. Or I'm not going to want to come in here.
Yeah, and having that ability, and you're kind of limited too. Like, there's these people you're not able to speak to, or because of HIPAA and because of these regulations, that this is the person you have as an agent should be your advocate. When you do a power of attorney, it's called an agent because you're literally stepping into the shoes of that person. So if I'm telling the agent something, that should be I'm telling my person that, and then that gets disseminated where it needs to be, and then people need to understand that that's how that document works and have that conversation, and to pick that person who is going to be that business-like person or that spokesperson to then facilitate for the rest of the people, because that's literally not your job. Yeah.
And it's difficult too, because then the doctors are like, who am I talking to? Right. And so we have to identify, this is, Louisa, and she's the spouse, or something like that. And so then again, the docs are like stuck talking to multiple family members, and you're ICU,
precluded from talking to certain people if you don't have that either governmental relationship that we say is okay, or the actual piece of paper that says that. You guys aren't able to even talk to them anyways.
Yeah. Or if the patient's capable of saying, I'm okay with you telling this person what's going on. I'm like, okay, even if you tell me that, it doesn't mean that I need to. Right. I was like, again, I've already had this conversation. You need to speak to this person. It's a pain in the ass, really, in the aspect of, like, I know that you guys all want to be involved in his care, but, like, I can't sit here and explain to you what that blue number is. Right.
I've already told somebody they can tell you. Yes. We can telephone it. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, I almost want to be like, Google it at this point. You know what I mean? And so, but it is, again, I have other patients, I have other things I need to do, and this is just taking too much time. But then you have the patients that have nobody, and you're just kind of like, I want to tell people what's going on. I want to tell somebody, and there's nobody here. So you always have kind of both sides of the coin.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you found value, please like, subscribe, and share. And be sure to follow me on all the socials at Sips and Tips with Lindsay. And of course, you can always go to my website, sipsandtipswithlindsay.com, to find more information about estate planning, business, snowboard, travel, and of course, wine. as always, we have to get the legal stuff out of the way. I went to law school, so you don't have to. However, we have to read the special disclaimer that I am not a practicing attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not offering any legal advice in any content or any episode. All content is for your information and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for seeking your own legal advice from your own attorney or other professional such as a CPA or financial advisor. I cannot give legal advice and do not offer any legal services or legal advice, but I do offer some fun and educational content for you to enjoy.